Welcome to the Lean Body Mind Podcast. My name is Steve and I'll be your host and companion for the next 15 or 20 minutes. So grab your cup of coffee, or I'm actually having green tea this morning, and let's have a chat. So I've got my list of notes here. We'll see how many of these we cover. I'm going to kind of try and keep an eye on the time as well. Let's see where I want to start this week. So the first topic I'm going to cover is monetization. And I talked about this before in the video where I give away the Alton Brown cookbook, his first cookbook, I'm Just Here for the Food, autographed by Alton himself. I will be drawing for that later on today, so make sure you have notifications turned on, because I will respond to one of your comments over on that video to let you know that you won, and if I don't hear back from you in 24 hours, I will draw someone else. But for those of you who didn't watch that video, you can still go over there and watch that video and, try and get into the drawing, which I will do later this afternoon. But YouTube is going to make money one way or the other. They will place ads on videos whether I give them permission to or not. Monetization just means I get a little cut. A very little cut. In fact, the first day I made 56 cents. So try not to be jealous. I also got a number of comments on that video where people were asking, will I do channel memberships or Patreon or anything like that that might allow people to contribute more to the success of this channel and help me pay the bills so I can quit, pulling money out of my retirement. And I do have a Patreon account. I tend to try and push people more towards YouTube just because I can't really give perks, if you will, to people on Patreon without it being a lot of extra work. Now, if people are interested, I will start putting a link to my Patreon account back in, but just be aware that if you contribute via Patreon, you don't really get much except for the warm, fuzzy sensation of contributing. You can also contribute on the SeriousKeto.com website. There's a button that says, I think, support the channel or something like that. You can click on that and just make a direct PayPal donation or a recurring donation. But whether you choose to do that or not is purely up to you. I'm not here begging for money or anything like that. One thing I may do, though, is also set up channel memberships, similar to what I've done over on Serious Keto. Likely there will just be two tiers. The first tier is just the 99 cents. I want to help out Steve, and I think the only perk for that will be getting to see videos in advance, like a few days before everybody else. So I'm thinking about that. And then probably a higher tier. I think the other tier, if I do it, will be quite a bit more expensive. Like sort of the putting Steve on retainer as a life coach for personal coaching sort of level. I don't know if there'll be any interest in that, but who knows? Maybe I'll throw that out there. But I'm going to start with just the one tier, hey, I just want to help out Steve for 99 cents a month and get early access to his videos. That'll be coming pretty soon, maybe as soon as next week, and I'll make some sort of little announcement for it. In terms of upcoming videos, I'm working on a lot of stuff. The challenge is sort of manifold in that part of it is learning the skills to do certain things with some of these editing pieces of software. The animation software. I'm trying to learn OBS for doing some fancier stuff with live streams. I don't know if you've ever watched Chris Bear and his wife Miriam over on the Keto Chow thing, but they do every day a live stream, and it's pretty professional the way that Chris has got it all set up with Stream Dock or Stream Deck and OBS, and I would like to be able to do something similar to that when I do live streams on this channel. So that's something I'm working on. But the other challenge that I kind of face is I need to work within certain windows of opportunity for some of these videos. So if I'm doing a video on a grill hack, a grill cleaning hack, I need to have cooked something that really, really gunks up my grill. Chicken thighs, like marinated chicken thighs with sauce on it, that tends to gunk it up pretty good. But if I want to film that hack, I need to have a situation where I'm making the chicken thighs and then the next day have some decent weather and decent lighting so that I can make the video. Similarly, I have a really hard time saying that word. Similarly, kitchen hack videos and certain videos for cleaning and things like that. Again, I either need the appropriate dirty object that I can clean, or I need a lot of time with the kitchen to myself. And I don't get a lot of time with the kitchen to myself because between Jaden and Connor and Colton, somebody is always eating. And it always seems like I'm in the way in the kitchen. So that's the other challenge. But I just want everyone to know that this is not going to be just the podcast sort of channel. The podcast will still occur, probably weekly, but we're going to start seeing some videos coming real soon. I promise. Cross my heart. Oh, and on that subject, probably one of the first videos that I do that will be, it probably, I don't know if it'll be an explainer video or if it's just going to be sort of a PowerPoint presentation with a little picture of me down in the corner talking, but it's going to be a quick intro to Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is not a methodology that I see people using a lot in their day-to-day lives, but there will be some terminology that I use going forward that is derived from the Six Sigma world, as well as I just think the overall structure of Six Sigma in terms of a project management structure makes sense at a high level for as you're thinking through solving your own problems or looking at opportunities in your day-to-day life. So that will be one of the first ones that really starts to get into, I don't know if I'd call it the business application, because this whole channel is really about the personal application, but I can't really discuss it without first talking about some of the business applications of Six Sigma. So you'll see that, I think, before the end of this month. Now, if you're wondering, as I'm rattling off all these different, rather disparate types of videos, what is this channel all about? It's about making life better. And there's a whole lot of stuff in life. Some of it's problem solving, some of it's being more efficient, some of it's just being happier. And that will be the broad theme of this channel. So I don't want you to think that I'm like scatterbrained and I'm all over the place with ideas. I'm kind of all over the place with ideas, but they all have this sort of central theme. One of the things that I also want to make a recurring theme in these podcasts is sort of the quote of the week. I wish, and I hope, maybe I can at some day come up with a great quote. Something that people remember, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, or something like that. Some people are just masters at coming up with great quotes. Vince Lombardi has a ton of them. Of course, as a Packer fan, as a cheesehead, I got to bring that up. But I think this is going to be a theme, just because I love quotes, and I think that they can be very inspiring. There have been a lot of times where the right quote has come around at the right time for me and made a lot of difference. And here's this one this week. This is from Langston Hughes. He said, "I have discovered in life that there are ways of getting almost anywhere you want to go, if you really want to go." So as you think about your goals and things that you want to improve in your life or change in your life, or things that are on your bucket list, just remember that quote. I've discovered in life that there are ways of getting almost anywhere you want to go, if you really want to go. And with that, we'll take a brief little ad break. Another common feature that we'll have on the podcast is book reviews. And I don't think I'm going to be able to pull off one every single week. A lot will probably depend on how often I'm traveling with my wife to go visit Courtney in southwest Wisconsin, because that allows me to get in about 2 hours of reading each direction. And I can put a pretty big dent in a book over the course of 4 hours. If we're not traveling, if I'm not in a car, my wife likes to drive. I tend to be the passenger, so that's how I get to read. I'm not driving and reading simultaneously. That would just be dangerous. But we'll be doing book reviews at least monthly, maybe every other week. Starting with the first one, Lights Out: Pride, Delusion, and the Fall of General Electric. I'm not sure who this book is for, to be honest. I think probably the main target audience is former GE employees like me who want some degree of affirmation that what they felt was true, that we were full of pride, and a little bit of delusion. And that a lot of us really kind of drank the Kool-Aid. And some of us, myself included, at least in terms of some of the corporate philosophies, was serving the Kool-Aid. Speaking of Kool-Aid, my tea's getting cold. I've been just talking and not having any tea. So the first probably 120 pages of Lights Out, I enjoyed quite a bit. It gave a lot of background on the history of GE. It talked a lot about Jack Welch. It talked a lot about sort of the glory days within the really mid-'80s to about the year 2000, until the time that Jack Welch retired. And they raised some different views of Jack Welch in that. One is that, he was the best and most admired manager ever. The other is that the economy was in general doing pretty well, and he was just able to ride that. And it doesn't really plant a flag in the ground one way or the other on that topic. It's a lot more, what would I say, opinionated when it comes to Jeff Immelt, and I'll talk about that shortly. But I enjoyed the first 120 pages. After that, well, actually, as I got probably around page 100, give or take, I read a line in the book, and I mentioned this during my live stream. I read a line in the book that sounded almost like a quote from me. There was a few sentences that sounded eerily like something that I had said in the past. And I went and I flipped open the back cover and I looked at this picture of this author here, Thomas Grida. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. And I thought, And I went back into my LinkedIn messages from 2018 and I saw that Thomas Grida reached out to me from the Wall Street Journal and I did a phone interview with him. So some of my descriptions of what life was like working at GE Capital wound up in this book. So that was kind of interesting. It was an off-the-record conversation. I didn't want to get sued, for anything that I might say about GE. But in essence, GE was made up so much of GE Capital, which is where I worked most of my career, that it was almost classified as a bank rather than as an industrial corporation. And it was one of those things where GE always made its number, usually because of GE Capital. And when, Fortune or Forbes or Wall Street Journal would want to know, how did you get to that number? How come you always hit your number? The explanation was GE Capital is a very complex operation. It would be too difficult to explain it to you. And GE got away with that. There was a similar sort of behavior and attitude like that out of Enron. If you've read the book The Smartest Guys in the Room or watched the documentary, you'll see that on display. Incidentally, if you do watch the documentary, this is a total aside, I love the documentary Smartest Guys in the Room, the Enron story, but there's a bit where they're talking about one of the executives and his fondness for strip clubs, and then they show some strip club footage, like nudity and all, and it's just so out of place. And completely unnecessary for the purposes of this documentary. I have no idea what compelled them to decide to do that, unless for whatever reason they were just looking for an R rating. But that's an aside. Anyhow, Welch leaves, Immelt takes over. And basically from that point in the book, there's just a whole, you can't turn to any page without seeing dollar signs and billions. It almost gets to the point that it's a little bit numbing. 53 billion, 60 billion, 90 billion. The numbers cease to matter. And Jeff Immelt, according to this book, was basically a, jock sort of sales guy. He was all about sales. He didn't understand GE Capital, so he tended to insult GE Capital, even when GE Capital was the one helping him make the sales. I can tell you, working at GE Healthcare Financial Services, we financed about 40% of the MRs and CTs and ultrasound systems that GE Healthcare sold. We were very often the ones that got a deal made. And when any division was coming up short, whether that's aircraft engines or healthcare or plastics or appliances, it was always GE Capital that would step in and work some magic. Accounting magic. A lot of one-time, I believe they were called accounting maneuvers. And if that sounds sketchy, it probably was. Now, nothing was illegal, but there was a lot of stuff that just, it wouldn't fly today. It wouldn't fly post-Enron. There were things that looked an awful lot like mark-to-market accounting, which Enron was guilty of, where you apply some sort of future value to an activity and then net present value it to today. So, for example, in the case of GE, we would look at service contracts. You sell a generator and a 20-year service contract. Well, I could take that service revenue in each year, or I could net present value that entire stream and call that income today. Now the problem is, that's an awful lot like putting an IOU into your kid's piggy bank. So you raid their piggy bank, take out some money, oh, I'll put this back in the future. And probably one of the things that may have led to my first layoff from GE was I saw these things and I started calling them out. I started saying, how often can we keep doing this? At some point, the well runs dry. So it was nice in the book to kind of see the fact that, I had said these things and they turned out to be right. But really, after about the first 120, 150 pages, it really just becomes a whole lot of repetitive. Jeff Immelt didn't know really what he was doing. He didn't understand capital. He followed fads. He got into fads too late, and he stuck around too long. And beyond that, the book itself tends to jump around from time to time. It's not a contiguous sort of storyline. I think this could have been, the GE story could have been a great, almost Greek tragedy of a story had it been told right. But I think the authors get more hung up on some of the financial aspects rather than the overall tragedy of this great, once great American company really kind of going down the tubes, just through bad management and bravado and delusion. The other thing I would have liked to have seen a lot more, given that much of my career at GE was spent in continuous improvement, was talking about Six Sigma and lean startup and FastWorks. I mean, I probably just spoke about those topics more in that 30-second little chunk there than they're given credit for or mention in the book. So, on the whole, I think this book is probably not for most people. And there's not much you're going to get out of it, if anything, in terms of continuous improvement, bettering your life, or anything like that. So, if you were at all thinking about reading this book, hopefully I just saved you a couple of bucks in a few hours. Now, one last thing before I close out this podcast that I'm looking at doing, and I don't know if they will be part of the podcast or if they'll be separate videos. I'm thinking they'll be standalone videos. And these are going to be me trying something out for 30 days. And maybe you join me. Maybe we have it as a contest or I don't know, like when I did some of the extended fasts over on Serious Keto. So if I were to do like 30 days of planking, and I'd do a kickoff video, and then we'd all do, well, not all of us, but whoever wants to be part of it would do planks for 30 days and see what their results are. Or maybe there's a product to try out. Or, as I mentioned in the video where I reviewed Breath by James Nestor, I think I'll start taking each of those breathing techniques and trying one of those out for 30 days and see what happens. Anyhow, that's kind of what's going on for the channel. I think Thursdays is going to be the podcast day. That way, if people are watching on Serious Keto and watching this, they can kind of space those podcasts out throughout the week. What do you think? Mondays and Thursdays? Does that work for you? I hope so. That's it for this podcast. Thanks for watching.